Relationships are just so important. A lot of people who are not conscious enough, they go to a networking event and they walk in the door thinking, I got to sell my product or I've got to sell my service. And they're going up to everyone just trying to sell themselves. Oh man, you're fully missing the point.
Welcome to another edition of Living Boldly with Purpose. I'm Dr. B. I am your host today. And man, when I think about living in purpose, and I think about what does that mean for people? Because everybody, I believe that we were all put on this planet for some type of purpose to be able to do something. But I don't know, and maybe our guest today, once I introduce him here, you can kind of share some, light on it. But I don't know if you can be in purpose without serving others, and I guess as I try to think of it, and I try to come up with, give me one example. I ask myself these things when I'm late at night, ready to say, give me one example, Brian, of how somebody could live in their purpose and never serve another person in the midst of doing it. And I haven't come up with it. So if you have one when you talk here, I would love to hear it. But when we're able to serve others, when we're able to take what we've been given on this earth and being able to give it back and be able to help another fellow person in mankind become the person that they're meant to be, I think that's the greatest joy in the world. And I think when we're giving of ourselves is where the joy comes. There's only so much material things that you can have. There's only so much vacations you can go on. There's only so much, lavish lifestyle that you can live before either you just start wasting it and doing a whole bunch of stuff, or you start doing it for good. And, when I think of some of the richest or the most wealthiest people in the world, they do it monetarily. But, and then I think of some of the wealthiest people, like a Mother Teresa or something, and she does it through service. And either way, whether you're giving a whole bunch of stuff or you're doing it through service, you're still trying to help other people find this fulfillment, find this joy. And our guest today is not like that. I'm going to let him tell a story. I'm not going to give it away of the wonderful things that he's doing. But I promise you, he is serving others. And I believe he's living in purpose. And so thank you for being on today. Thank you for sharing your life with us and being vulnerable and all those things. I've asked him to tell a story, right? From I said, wherever you want. You can start at like the day you were born, if you can remember that. Most people can't, so they probably don't start there. Sometimes they just share what their mama told them happened, and that can be all over the place. And then, we'll go from there. We'll chop it up and ask a whole bunch of questions after that. So thank you for being on. Thank you for wanting to spend that time with us today. And it's all yours. The floor is yours, and we'll wrap it up as we continue to go.
Dr. B, thank you, dude. Thank you so much for having me on your show as well. I really appreciate you, and I appreciate the time we've both taken to end up here right now in this moment, which is where we're supposed to be, having a conversation together, right? And before I tell you parts of my story, I just want to say, man, I really applaud your podcast. I really, really applaud the topic and what you're passionate about. This whole idea of living on purpose is just so important. And what you said then in the intro around purpose being of service, I mean, people who have a purpose, I mean, you can have whatever purpose you want, right? Make it up. No one comes and knocks on your door and says, that's not your purpose. You get to make it up. But the thing is that if your purpose is just to make millions of dollars and live that lavish lifestyle that you're talking about, the chances are you're not going to experience fulfillment from that. You're not going to get to a point in your life where you go, wow, I really feel content. I have an inner peace. I feel fulfilled. It just doesn't happen. The fulfillment part comes from when you're in service, and what I've noticed, because I work with philanthropists and I work with very successful people who've created a lot of wealth, and they don't feel fulfillment even when they just throw money at a random charity. Like if they're just giving money to some charity that they have no connection to, that still doesn't give them fulfillment. It's when they channeling their resources to something that they're passionate about, that they can get involved in. It's like somehow there has to be some kind of service for
Yeah.
others in there
Yeah.
for you to
Something that
feel
you
that
feel. Yeah.
piece.
Yeah. Feel in your heart or whatever it
That's
is
it.
that, hey, this is what I want to get to. Because, it's too easy just to hand somebody some money and say, I hope it does good. And I know some
Yeah.
people do that every now and then, but like you said, where's the fulfillment in that? That's just saying I went out and made
Yeah.
all much money and I'm just giving it because somebody asked. It's not
Yeah.
really.
Yeah. And look, do that as well. Like I've got
Yeah, of
money that
course.
goes
Yeah.
every month that goes to particular charities, but I forget about that. That's not what makes me wake up in the morning and feel good. That money's just going there, which is a good thing, but that doesn't give me fulfillment. The fulfillment comes from when we get passionately involved in a cause that we care about, and we give our time and our creativity and our resource to that. That's where we start to feel like, yeah, I'm feeling good
That made
about
me
that.
just
So
think,
anyway, so
yeah, I was saying, it just made me think like we don't see a whole bunch of the mutual fund of charities, right? Like here's the charities going, put the
right.
money in there, and it just goes out to whatever, the
Yeah,
hedge
yeah.
fund or the charity fund manager that just picks and
Yeah.
chooses
Yeah,
what
yeah, yeah.
there's not a lot of
Yeah.
that's happening because you really do need to
Yeah.
find something that you're passionate about. I like that. Thank you. All right, so
Yeah.
story. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah, yeah. Story. Dude, look, it's been a colorful ride. I'm here now. I'm 53 years old, and I don't know what that's supposed to feel like. I still feel pretty young and full of life and excitement and joy. But uh, my dad was from England. My mum was, 6 or 7 generations Australia, going back to Scotland and Ireland. But I was born in the Netherlands, in Holland.
Oh wow.
Lived overseas for the first year of my life. My mum and dad were very international. Dad was working all around the world. They moved to Australia. I grew up in Australia. Pretty standard kind of um, life. But we look back and we go, what were the moments that defined or helped define me? What were the moments that impacted me? And one of them was when I was 17, my best friend, my closest friend, had a motorcycle accident. I spent my 18th birthday sitting bedside while he was in a coma. And 5 days after my 18th birthday, they decided to switch off the machines and let him pass on through to the other side, right? So that was when I was 18. As soon as I finished high school, I just couldn't get far enough away from everything. I was off traveling, and from the age of 18 through to about 32, if I wasn't in some weird, wonderful country somewhere, I was somewhere else earning money to get back on that travel road, And so I spent a lot of my years wandering around, barefoot and dreadlocked, and, seeking
I
spiritual
love it.
enlightenment in
Yes.
places like India. And, but not just on a holiday. Like, this was me for a long time. I was anti-establishment. I didn't want to be a rat in the wheel. I didn't want to go and get that job and just join in with everyone else trying to do that thing. That wasn't me. But then, when I was in my early 30s, I'd fallen in love and got married, and we had kids, and I was like, wow, man, I got to support these children. Right? I got to put a roof over their head. And I was in my early 30s. I had no career. I had no
Yeah.
qualifications. I just been bumming around the world. I had a lot of travel experience. I had a lot of stories. But anyway, so I got a job with a travel company, and I ended up wearing a suit and tie,
Really?
which,
Wow.
yeah, dude. And the people who are listening to this who can't see me, you can't see, but I'm covered in ink, and I've got stretched ears, and I used to have a mohawk. Like, I'm, I'm pretty alternative. And there I
Uh,
was in a suit and tie. And my friends and family were like, dude, what are you doing? And I'm like, I've got to feed these kids, man. I've got to do the
yes.
thing that I always avoided doing, but and so I did that for 8 years, and I had a pretty successful time there, and I climbed the corporate ladder, and I ended up in senior leadership, and I had 150 staff in my division, and the business was turning over 100 million
Wow.
bucks a year, etc. And through that time, I lost myself again, man. I went down I went through the dark forest of the hero's journey again, and lost touch with my values and my spirituality and my purpose. My purpose was to feed my kids, but I lost touch of the bigger service purpose. And so then I had the midlife, what people call the midlife crisis, in my early 40s. For me, it was a midlife awakening, brother. It was a spiritual awakening, and I lost my job, lost my marriage, lost my house, lost all the stuff, kept my two sons.
Well, there
We
you
went
go.
straight into
That's
50.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was the most important part. So
Yeah.
I had my two boys who were quite young at the time, and I had a surfboard and a guitar, and that was it, and a whole bunch of debt. But I had an awakening experience, man. It was really beautiful and hard. I had to lose everything to figure it out. But then I knew my purpose at that time really was just feed my boys and come back to a place of self-love, um, and really to generate a place of inner peace. And once I started to do that, this was 12 years ago now. Once I started to do that, to create this place of inner love and acceptance, and cultivate this relationship with self, which is then your relationship with life, right? Your
Mhm.
internal world is your external world. The perception is the projection. It's all interconnected. And so that as I started to cultivate a place of deep self-love, then I started to be able to look outward and go, how am I here to serve? You know, so I need to feed these kids, but I also need to do that using my natural gifts, my talents, what I've been blessed with, to serve others. And over the last 12 years, I've been on that mission and getting clarity around purpose, which is an evolving conversation. But I've got very, very clear purpose. And so now I'm lucky enough to be able to, run my leadership coaching consultancy and my international retreat company that we run, and also the charity that we're building at the moment. We're raising money to build a not-for-profit meditation retreat center in the Himalayan mountains in India, which is our second home. We have a family there that we support, and we're going to generate revenue through the Center of Love, which is what we're building to help kids have access to education. Kids who don't normally have access to education because of poverty and location. And so we're going to help them have education, which will then be a legacy for generations, that they can, improve the quality of their lives.
Like I say, so many questions, and I thank you for sharing. As I'm thinking of the journey, right, and one of the journey that you're going through, and the living with purpose and finding that, the experiences that you were able to have. Because I think of identity, and I want to kind of start with identity and who the person that we are and we become, because you had so many different identities. I mean, you have whichever your parents shaped you, right? But then you took from like your 20s, and you were searching for, this is who I am, and you develop this identity, and all of a sudden you go, wait a minute, this identity is great, but I got to go make some money. I got to change that who I am so that I can support these two young kids. But within that, I mean, what I guess I'm seeing, and you can help me understand this, is during that 20s, you developed relationships like there's probably no tomorrow. Like, as you're traveling the world and you're getting to know people, it was almost like a school. We go to school, we go to colleges or whatever, so that we can, hopefully network. I mean, that's what I told my kids anyways. When you go to college, I want you to network, because what you're learning, it probably won't even matter in 20 years. But if you can learn how to make relationships, and you did that. And so talk to me about your identity and how it was shaped through all this.
Dude, I love that. What you just shared then is so important. To anyone listening right now, just pause and let that bit sink in, because it's not what they teach you. It's not the content they teach you. It's your ability to build authentic, beautiful relationships. And man, the Harvard study on adult development, the longest study on a population of people that we've ever done, it's been going on for 80 or 90 years or something. The most resounding finding from this study is that the quality of your life is directly correlated to the quality of your relationships. Right? That's how good your life is. When you get to the end of your days and you're kicking back on your porch and the grandkids are running around, you're sitting there in your rocking chair looking at your life, and the grandkids say, "How good is your life?" or how good has your life been? The answer will be directly correlated to the quality of your relationships, you know. So what you just said is really beautiful. I love that, man. And so through my 20s, I learned how to, not only how to connect with people, but how to connect with people who were really different to me. And that's important. People who, from a different culture, from a different part of the world, from a different demographic, from a different, with different religious ideas, different political ideas, different food, different everything, right? And learning how to look beneath the layers of these divides of difference, to move through the fear that we have of someone being different to us, and you don't need to pull back many layers to connect on a level where we've got so much in common, and to connect with people across these divides of difference. At the time, I didn't realize what I was doing. I was just organically driven to connect cross-culturally, right? I didn't realize what I was doing. Now I look back, and as you said, I was developing a skill, a skill that next in a few weeks, man, I'm flying from Australia over to LA to go up to Santa Barbara to speak at a conference. And they're asking me to go and run a 2-hour session on how to help members of this organization reconnect because they've stopped talking to each other because of the recent election. Right? Now, these are members of the same organization. They're in a community together, and there are people that have stopped connecting and communicating because of different political ideas, right? And so here I am now, the age of 53, and I earn my living by going and helping people connect across the divides of difference, which is what I learned how to do in my 20s, right? So all the pieces
Yeah.
come back
How
together
it
again.
all comes full circle. And I think of, like, had you've been dropped into corporate America. Let's say you, instead of going and traveling and doing all the things you do, you get dropped into corporate and then you start learning like who you're going to go train, right? What they did in order to climb that corporate ladder. Then you're probably nowhere. You don't jump in after you're 30 and go all the way to the top and climb the ladder so fast because you don't have all the relationships that they didn't teach you how to do. And so you go do the perfect thing, and then all of a sudden, boom, 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 because you have relationships. And I would love to be the fly on the wall in your seminar in a couple weeks because I know that's what it's going to be about. It's going to be about people. What is wrong with you?
God. Man, I feel so blessed these days. When I look at my calendar each week, in my calendar, I have my time divided up for the different parts of life that I need to put attention to. And about 50% of my calendar appointments is making new connections with new people that I've been introduced to around the world, people who are, when I say successful, they are in service, creating massive positive change, building communities of people who are helping humanity in the right direction. They're beautiful, positive, spiritual people who are successful in business in whatever they do, but they are on a mission to try and tip the scales of humanity in the right direction. And I meet these people. I meet anywhere from 6 to 10 of these new people every single week. And we're creating connections where we're collaborating and we're supporting each other to do our good work, and so it's building relationships on a global scale. And I love it. I mean, for me, selfishly, I love connecting with good people, right? That makes me just feel so good. And then on a service level, then I'm finding out what are they excited about. It's like the first question you asked me before we started recording, and you said to me, Jem, what are you most excited about at the moment, right? What do you, and I love that question, and I love asking people that question. And then I can find out, well, who can I introduce you to that might be able to support you on your mission, right?
Yes.
How can I add value to you through our community, our global community? So yeah, man, I completely agree with you. Relationships are just so important. It's what makes the world go round. And when we then think, how can I support you? It's a lot of people who don't understand, who are not conscious enough. They go to a networking event and they walk in the door thinking, I got to sell my product or I've got to sell my service. And they're going up to everyone just trying to sell themselves. It's like, wow, man, you're fully missing the point. You should be walking into that room going, who can I support in here? Who can I connect with and find a way to help support them on their mission? You know?
Can you imagine what our world would be like if everybody got up? Was the first thing they thought about? Yes, how can I serve others? I mean,
Yeah,
within like a month, we wouldn't have any of most of our world issues would be solved if we
I
could
know,
just
right?
get away. When I think
Yeah,
about success leaving clues, and I'm loving this conversation we get to have because we jumped right into what matters, which is really cool that we got to do
yeah,
that. But when you think about how you spend some of your time, and I can imagine right now, just after meeting you a little bit, like I don't see here in America, and probably the same in Australia, there's so much time spent watching other people play pretend on the television or releasing or entertainment or all these things that we do to distract us from our life. What kind of things, because when you're living in purpose and you got something and you have goals, what's your days like that are not doing, I guess your whole day is doing the thing you love to do at this point, but like how are you not distracted by all these television shows, these sporting events, these sometimes here we call them barbershops where you just go and talk about how other people are succeeding instead of what you can
yeah.
do in the world. What are some things you've
Well,
been able to grow from?
yeah, it's a great question, and I think actually, a lot of it has got to do with being so engaged with your mission, with your purpose. Because when you are genuinely intrinsically motivated to keep doing whatever you can do to keep growing and living and being on purpose, on mission, then look, my partner and I, we still switch off occasionally and watch some Netflix at night.
Of course.
You know,
Yeah.
I love football here in Australia. I love football. My biggest kind of switch off, I get my drama fix, right? Because humans are addicted to drama.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I haven't watched mainstream news for 30 years. I just don't watch mainstream news, right? Um, because people watch the news to get their addiction for drama met, right?
Yeah.
But I get my drama fix by watching sport. And here in Australia, it's called Aussie Rules, Australian Rules Football. It's the best
Okay.
sport ever. I love it. But I don't watch it all the time. I watch a little bit of it on the weekends, right? Because in the mornings when I wake up, the first thing I do is 20 minutes of mindfulness meditation. And then after my meditation, when I'm getting ready at the end of my normal hot shower in the morning, I have a minute of full cold water exposure. I don't enjoy it, but when you get out of the cold water, then the dopamine goes up and you're like, yo, let's go. I'm ready for the day, right? That's when I'm saying my affirmations. I say my positive affirmations every single morning. I'm wiring this stuff, right? I'm creating the meta framework of my beliefs around myself and life. I'm consciously
Mhm.
creating that through my affirmations, right? And then I go out into the day and when I look at my calendar in the day, everything I'm doing needs to be in some way helping me live the mission or the purpose. And I've thought a lot about purpose because I help people come to clarity of their own purpose as well. And that's why I was excited to be on your show. I've thought a lot about it over the years. And for me, there are layers of purpose. It's like an onion, there's layers
Mhm.
of the onion. And at the very core, in the very center, in the middle of my experience of life, is my core purpose, which is in four parts. I feel like I'm here to love unconditionally, to practice unconditional love, to learn open-mindedly. Right? I want to always be trying to open my mind and always be learning, to give generously. That's really important to me, and to grow or to evolve continually, right? So this is deep at the core of it for me. The next layer out, so when I go, so what's my purpose then in terms of my wife and our children and my community, right? The next purpose out for me is to help make lives easier, right? It doesn't mean always easy. Life is going to be sometimes tough, right? When someone dies, it hurts. When you stub your toe, it hurts, right? So it doesn't mean making life easy. It just means I feel passionate about helping to make lives easier. If I can make my wife's day a little bit easier, I'm on purpose. If I can make our children's lives a little bit easier, then I'm on purpose. If I'm walking down the street and I see an older person struggling to get their shopping into their car and I can help them put their shopping in their car, I feel like I'm living on purpose, right? So that's the next layer out. And then the final layer out, which is what sits on my website, and it's the mission statement for our charity, and it's the mission for my retreats and our leadership work, is amplifying positive ripples into waves of contribution. Right? So I work as a coach and a retreat facilitator and a guide and a mentor. And when I can help people come to a place of clarity around their own contribution, then I'm turning ripples into waves, right? And we have a high ticket program, a 2-week experience in India, and we work with high net worth individuals. And part of them finding fulfillment in their life is them coming to clarity of their meaningful contribution. So when I help them get clear on their philanthropy, and then they're channeling their resources of money and time into their meaningful contribution, I'm on purpose. I'm on mission, man. I'm helping to create these waves,
It's so good because as I'm hearing you, and your second layer where you're talking about appreciation and gratitude, and life isn't going to be good for everybody, but life isn't as good if you haven't gone through some of the bads. Some of the things that just hurt, and just getting up saying, I want to make it easier. I want to make it purposeful, and going back to the things that you do. I hope that you guys who are listening to this are writing some of these things down when you get up in the morning, because I think of like the people who do turn on the news, right? Because we want to get our drama fixed. But sometimes, especially because we are so connected to the entire planet, and I can't control what's going on in India, or what's going on in Ukraine, or what's going on in Egypt. But I watch all that stuff. And now my burden of what I can do to do the world becomes so overwhelming, I think, that it paralyzes me into not doing anything. I mean, do you kind of find, so by doing the things that you're doing every morning, I went over to my in-laws' house yesterday to have dinner, and they were telling me about all these things that are happening, like some plane that turned over on its back. And I'm like, I had no clue. But I'm thinking, okay, we're spending all this time talking about, I don't know where it happened at, but what can I possibly do other than just go, oh, drama, great, okay, they're safe, great, they'll move on, but they're hurt now. Am I taking that on? I mean, how important is this thing that you do every day that says, wait a minute, I can't do everything to all people. Let's find that purpose.
It's really important for two different reasons, or different layers of two different perspectives or layers of reality. It's important, right? So at one level, let's just look at the Buddhist philosophy of my responsibility is to generate a peaceful experience of my life, which will then positively impact those people immediately around me, right? So when someone says to me, Jem, do you really believe what you're doing is actually going to help the world? Because the humanity's messed up, man. Like there's a lot of bad stuff going on in humanity. Do you really think that what you do is going to make a difference? And my first answer to that question is, I'm not actually attached to the outcome. I'm hopeful. I have hope, but I have no expectations. I have no attachment to the outcome. But my choice is that I either wake up in the morning and live the life I live, which is for me a joyful, positive, engaged life where I'm on mission. I'm the happiest person I know, dude. Everyone says to me, "Oh my God, you're so happy all the time." I'm like, "Yeah, I know, because I'm living life this way, right?" So my experience of life is wonderful, which means that the people immediately affected by me, like my wife and our children, their life is positively impacted by the fact that I'm a happy kind of guy, right? And I'm hopeful and I'm on mission, right? So whether that actually helps humanity or not, well, that doesn't actually really matter in the end. So that's one level of reality. But the other level is that if enough of us do the daily practice of not watching the news, but meditating and then affirmations and getting on purpose and then going out and serving and doing good and looking for a way to make a positive impact. If enough of us do that, we will actually positively impact humanity and tip the scales in the right direction, you know? And there's a lot of people like us, dude. I can tell you're a positive man, you know, who's out there to make a difference. You wouldn't be doing this podcast if you weren't, you know. There's a lot of us out there, and we can choose our own echo chamber. You know, what you focus on shows up more. What it's like your social media feed. If you click on all the terrible stuff, guess what the algorithms keep putting in front of you? You know, if you keep watching the news where it's all death and destruction, guess what you keep noticing a lot of, right? So you can create that echo chamber very easily because the algorithms are putting it all in front of you. But you can also consciously curate a positive, hopeful echo chamber, which becomes your reality. If you scroll through my Instagram feed, dude, it's all positive news
Yeah. Yeah.
because I don't click on the other stuff, right? So the algorithms know there's no point putting death and destruction in front of me because I don't click on it on purpose, right? And so the Instagram feed is an analogy of life, right? I'm constantly focused on good, positive people and connecting with them. So guess what shows up in my life, man? I walk down the street and I meet beautiful people every single day, right? Now I know there are people out there who are dysfunctional and upset and they don't know how to be happy and they're negative and they're doing terrible things. I know they exist. I just don't bump into them because I don't want to be hanging out with them, you know?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, and I really like where you're talking about outcomes and not trying to be connected to the outcome, because what I see is a whole bunch of people that you interact with that are so outcome driven that they can't or they won't just spend some time. Like they walk to a corner, on the corner street, and there's a lady that's maybe selling flowers or something. You and I will stop and talk to her for 15 minutes
Yeah,
because we want so much of the relationship and so much of what the
yeah,
world's got to offer. But the other person is like, would probably almost knock her down to get to where they're
yeah,
going so that they can finalize. And so now, you know, as you go into this, this conference in Santa Barbara, where there's such an end on based on what they think our world's going to be based on whoever got elected, this election. What are some things that you're going to, have to help them to connect with who they are instead of what I live in America and we've had presidents all my whole lifetime, right? And I don't know individually how they've affected my ability to go through life. You don't
yeah,
know.
yeah, 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 yeah. I
What,
love that. I love that. There's a really simple model
all
that
right.
helps simplify a way of approaching it. What you were just talking
Oh,
about. So most people do it in this order: have, do, be. They
yes.
think first about what do I want to have, right? What's the outcome I want? I want to have that promotion, or I want to have that much money, or I want to have that house, or I want to have that relationship, or I want to have that president, or I want to have whatever, right? They're thinking about the outcome and they're focused on getting that thing they want to have, which then determines what they do. So they go, right, well, I got to, work overtime, or I've got to go and do this thing, or I've got to go and vote in this way. I've got to do this, or I've got to do that to get what I want, right? Which then determines who they're being. They're not even aware of who they're being, and they're running around and they're stressed and they've got ulcers and they've got depression and anxiety and they can't sleep at night and their diet's unhealthy and they're being this person who's not really having a great life, right? But the idea is that we flip it around, that we focus be, do, have. So we focus on be. Who do I want to be? Who do I choose to be today? What character traits. What is who do I want to aspire to be, right? Which is my core values. What are my values? And what are your values? Once you get clear on your values, kindness, care, compassion, love, relationships, generosity, contribution, whatever those are, right? And each day, no one can stop you. If one of your core values is to be kind, no one can stop you from being kind. You don't need $100 million to be kind. You can be kind even if you're broke,
Yeah, when you just
right?
got to be kind. Da, 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 da.
So not so yeah, so nothing can stop you from being the person you want to aspire to be right now in this moment right now. And guess what happens? When you focus on being the person that you aspire to be, then the quality of what you're doing improves, right? Because you're being the person. So then the things you do, the relationships you build, the work that you do, the service that you do, whatever you do, when you're making your kids lunch boxes and sending them off to school, the quality of the lunches you make are better. Why? Because you were being the person that you wanted to be in that moment of caring. So you're putting together a beautiful, nice, healthy, yummy lunch for your kids because you're caring in that moment because of the person you're being. And then you look at what you have one day, you turn around, you go, wow, look what I've got. I've got a successful business. I've got successful relationships. I've got this beautiful life. Why? Because I focused on who I was being, not the outcome.
Uh, Thank you so much. I mean, it's so amazing how we are so connected. I am currently writing a book called "Be Do Have," the ultimate being the ultimate successful. After the first book I wrote was "There Is No Tiger," about overcoming overthinking and controlling anxiety. But my "Be Do Have" book is exactly what you're saying, because the same thing. I think of all the things that we do. We go do so that we can have, and then but we're not human doings. We're not human
Yeah.
havings. We're human beings, right?
Yeah.
And becoming that person
Yeah.
that aspires to be or becomes that person. And what I'm finding is that when you become that person, to be able to do the thing, you can't help but do it because you've
Yeah.
now become that person that just does, and
Yeah.
ultimately that becomes what you have because you have the things
Yeah.
that person who is being. And then I think of, maybe you can help me with this a little bit because I'm just going to steal this show and write it in a book. But it's the education versus entertainment. And when I think about education, I'm thinking about personal development, not you going to a
Yeah.
college or a university or a school or traditional education, but in order to become that person, you have to work on you. And when you
Yeah.
start working on you, the percentage of time that people try to be entertained compared to being educated, because I was thinking just what you were saying about scrolling on the feeds, right? When you see people at places, they're scrolling all these entertainment feeds so they can laugh, so they can be distracted.
Yeah.
How much time, if they spend that amount of time on working on
Yeah.
being,
Yeah.
instead of it
They'd be
just,
happier.
yes,
Yeah. Yeah.
and there's
Yeah.
so many things
Absolutely.
that are out there, yeah, that you can connect to. I
Man,
mean,
it's look, everybody wants. I don't know anybody that doesn't want to experience as much happiness as possible,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
A deeper happiness, not the surface level happy, sad, happy, the deep
yeah,
contentment happiness. If I came up to anyone on the street and said, "Look, you can choose. In my left hand, I have struggle and suffering. In my right hand, I have happiness and joy. Which one do you choose?" Everybody would choose happiness and
right,
joy, right?
yeah,
And so what I hear you saying, Dr. B, is that the the pathway to true happiness and joy and fulfillment, the pathway to experiencing that more and more is through the inner work, the education of the development of self and your relationship with life, not through scrolling and numbing yourself or distracting yourself by mindless entertainment, right?
mhm,
And the mindless entertainment is easy and it's addictive and very successful for the big platforms, for Meta and X and
yeah,
all of these platforms that are built off um, stealing our attention. I mean, that's the whole business model, is to try and keep our attention for as long as possible. And we're very easy to game, us humans. They figured out what gets us, and they're gaming us, and it's crazy, isn't it crazy? I mean, you're old enough like me, man. I remember before smartphones,
Oh yeah.
right? I remember before the internet, right? I remember life before the internet, you know.
Yeah,
But dude,
absolutely.
when I used to travel around the world, the only way to communicate with my family or anyone was to say, look, I think I'm going to be in Calcutta in a month. So if you want to write me a letter, send it to the post
Yes.
restaurant, the GPO in
Yeah.
Calcutta. And if I do end up actually going to Calcutta and I don't get distracted and go somewhere else, I'll go to the GPO in the middle of the city with my passport and say, is there any mail for me? Right.
Yeah.
And then I remember one time in Delhi, in India, another traveler said to me, email, dude, have you seen this email thing? And I'm like, email? No, 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 that sounds like computers and technology. I don't want to know anything about it, right? And they said to me, Jem, stop being crazy. Email was invented for you, dude. It was invented for travelers. Check this out. And they took me into an internet cafe and they showed me what Hotmail was. And I was like, what? No way. You mean people can write me a letter and it's anywhere in the world where I can get onto a computer with the internet? There's all my mail there. And they're like, yes. And I was like, oh, it blew my mind. Right. And now you walk down the street and no one's even looking at each other and
They're bumping
acknowledging
into
each other on
stuff.
the street.
Oh,
They're bumping into things because they're stuck, they're zoomed in on their phone watching Instagram reels. You know, it's like, wow, what's happening, man? You know, and my 20-year-old, he went traveling on his own after high school. He said, I'm going to go and travel overseas. I was like, great,
mhm.
off you go. And he said to me, Dad, what do I do when I get to a foreign city where they don't speak English and I don't know how to get around? What do I do? I said, are you kidding me? You've got an iPhone, dude.
You got,
It's
you
all
got a
right.
translator in your pocket.
You got a translator, you got a map, you can book into your hotels, you got everything is there. When I was traveling, I had a Lonely Planet guidebook sitting in the bottom of my backpack somewhere, you know, like
Oh my
crazy.
gosh. Yeah, I remember, I'll turning 60 next month. Um, and so I was the
You're
computer
turning
teacher.
60.
Yeah.
Are you
So
turning 60? Dude,
I'm
you
turning
look
60.
you look like you're still in your 40s, man. That is so good.
I love it. I love it. But I remember when I was teaching computers, when we were teaching teachers how to use like overhead projectors, we had this thing called Fred Mail. And Fred Mail was when one computer would dial up another computer. And we were excited. We say, I'm going to send this email and it's going to go to New York. And it's going to take 3 days to get to New York on this email. And exciting, like you couldn't believe, like, I can just send it, nobody has to put a stamp on it. And I can remember being in
Yeah.
Germany and like mom wants me to call home and I'm like, that's going to cost like a fortune for me to call you. I'm going to get 30 seconds and write down everything I'm going to say in 30 seconds. But yeah, I mean, and we're so connected now that we kind of forget that, oh my gosh, this relationship thing is so important. I want to go to restaurants sometimes and I just want to put a basket on the table and say, put your phone in this basket until this dinner's over.
Yeah.
Because you can't tell me that the conversation that is happening outside or what you're looking outside this restaurant is more important than the conversation that we're having now. And when you said like the personal development thing, I'm thinking like, okay, so that is because you can find what your purpose is when you work on you.
Yeah.
And then you can figure out how you can use that to serve others. And then once you do that, oh my gosh, it just opens up.
Yeah.
There's certain like, and I know I'm loving this conversation, but when you went, you corporate and you decide, wait a minute, I'm losing everything now because, now I'm really going, okay, who am I? What do I do? What was that like? What was that transition like to become where you're at now, where it just, hey, I finally found purpose and now it's taking off? What was that? Kind of help me through that a little bit.
So that was the second time that I've had a death of ego, an identity crisis. Right? The first time I was in my late 20s, and that was really scary, man, because I didn't know what was going on. Everything I'd identified with, being her partner or being the actor or the singer-songwriter or being all the vehicles that we identify with were all gone in my late 20s. And I was in London and it was a pretty dark time, man. I started using drugs and losing myself, and it was pretty scary, you know. But then what happened is that I went into a couple of years of the most beautiful, stunning self-development years. I spent years not working, just living very, very cheaply, wandering around India and the subcontinent and Asia, figuring out who I am and who do I want to be, and you know, how do I want to be of service in this life. And that was the first time. Then I lost my way again through the corporate world, and then the second time, which is the one you are asking me about, when I had that midlife awakening, it was at the same time as being really scary. It was also really it was so compelling. You know, when I lost everything I knew, I just knew I've got to follow this path. I wanted to be a coach. Um, I wanted to learn how to repair my relationship with self, and then I wanted to help others do that. Essentially, that's what I wanted to do. It ended up becoming a leadership coach, and I work with executives and yada yada now. But you know, so it was hard, you know, and I had to give up everything for that. I had to sell my house because I wasn't earning enough money in my consultancy, right? But I was determined, and everyone said to me, just go get another corporate job. And I was like, no, no, man, I've got a calling. I know I have to do this. And I had these two kids to feed, and I'd lost everything, you know. But I just knew it was my path. So I was determined. I got up every day. I'm like, just take action, take action, take action, get in front of people, meet people, just keep getting out there and taking action. And gradually, you know, I started to build my business, and thankfully, I'm pretty good at it. You know, my clients would, you know, be even more praising of it. I'm trying to be humble, but I'm good at what I do. And so thankfully I could build that reputation over time, and now the work just comes to me, and now I play on a more global level. And so, yeah, man, like, I don't know if I'm answering your question. What I'm trying to say is that it was really hard and tough, and I had to go to the bottom of the barrel of everything. But at the same time, it was also very clear because I knew my path. I didn't know how the path looked in the future. But I knew I was on the right path. So I just had to stick to it and back myself, you know?
And I guess you're absolutely answering me, because I'm thinking of that path that did you already know what you needed to do and then began to start doing it? Or as you started climbing up, you found, well, maybe it was just new relationships, new people, new something that helped
Yeah.
you to get to climb yourself out of it? Because I don't think we can all do it
Yeah.
on our
Yeah.
own. But like
No,
maybe
I
we're
didn't
just
know
one of
how to
those.
do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I didn't know how to do it. Um, I knew I needed help. I knew it was through meeting people, but I didn't know how to create what I've created. All
Mm-hmm.
I could do is say, well, there's a step in front of me. I don't know if this is the right step or not, but I'm just going to take it. I'm just going to take a step. You know, I can't stand still. I've got to take a step. And you're stepping into the darkness, and you don't know if it's the right step or not. And if the step works, then you go, okay, well, that's okay. Here I am now. Now I've got to take another step. And it's like that all the way, you know. And also, especially for me, it's my nature is to find my own way, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And that sometimes makes my life easier, and sometimes it makes it harder. It's certainly made my life very colorful and very unique, because I always wanted to find my own way. You know, I didn't want to just follow the cookie cutter approach. I couldn't just, you know, go to someone's course on how to create a successful coaching practice and just do what they did. I just could never do that. I've always learnt from a lot of different people, but people say, you know, who have been your teachers or your gurus? Man, the person begging on the street who I sat down with for an hour and had a conversation with, it was my teacher. You know, the person who was the keynote speaker at a conference was my teacher. My mother was my teacher. My children are my teachers. You know, everyone around me and everything happening all around me, there's a teacher in every moment, right? So we just kind of figure it out as we go along, right?
Yeah, you know what? Like one of my pillars that I talk about is trust. And, you know, because trust is so important in our ability to move things, because we don't trust anybody, we kind of put ourselves in the shell, and we have to figure out, okay, do I trust you until You prove me wrong. Do I not trust you until we spend a whole bunch of time together? And I'm listening to your path because you're trusting the unknown. You're
Yes.
trusting not, I have no clue if this is even going to work. But what else do I got to lose? I'm going to be, 10 years is going to go by either way. So how
Yes.
did you
Yes.
trust this process? And then the people, I mean, maybe kind of give me like, because whether it's gurus or the person on the street or whatever, you kind of trusted some of their information in order to make your new step. And how did you reconcile that with yourself? Like, how should I trust this person or not trust this person? Should I trust this process, not trust this process? How did you do that?
Well, I would try it on. If someone shared something with me, just say I was in a training, when I was studying coaching at the Coaching Institute here in Australia, and I'm sitting in the room, and the person up the front of the room, they know stuff that I don't know, and they've studied stuff that I don't know. They've got models and methodologies and understandings of neuro-linguistic programming and how the psychology works or the brain works or whatever. So I'm listening. I'm a sponge, and I'm listening, and I'm absorbing, and I'm taking notes, and I'm learning, and then I'm going and trying it on. What fits? What works? What do I think is going to help me, and then help me help others, right? And so you hear something for the first time, then you embody it and you practice it, and if it works for you, then you share it only with people who want to know. I've never tried to share anything with anyone who's not interested. Only when people are saying, please, I'm interested, can you share that with me? Then you start sharing it and you really start to embody it. And then when I don't share practices or implementations or methodologies with anyone that I'm not using, right? I only share the stuff that I do, right? If I read something in a book but I don't practice it, it's not a part of my life. I don't try and teach it to people. I'm only going to share with you the stuff that I'm living and breathing because I know it works. So it's like, how do you trust? I trust that whatever's in front of me is supposed to be in front of me in that moment, because I'm not going to argue with reality. I trust that everything that's happened leading up to this moment should have happened because it did, right? You can't change it. So I trust that it was meant to happen. I trust that every decision I make, the minute I make that decision and act on it, that's the decision I was supposed to make, apparently, because I made it, right? Now, that doesn't mean the outcome's going to be necessarily awesome, but I trust that I made the decision I was supposed to make because I made it. And whatever happens, I'm going to learn something from it. I lost a lot of money in the last few years trying out different online AI marketing companies who said they could bring me more clients. And twice I spent good chunks of money because I believed that they could deliver an outcome. Twice they didn't. They couldn't deliver the outcomes they said they could. I lost money. But I made the right decision, not because it made me money, but because I learned from it, and because I was taking action, and because I was prepared to take a risk to try and continue to expand my work, So I trust reality, basically, and we can always recalibrate back to reality, because in any given moment, if you and I could take a snapshot of time, if we could freeze time right now, reality tells us that everything is exactly as it's supposed to be in this moment, apparently, because there it is. You can argue with reality until the cows come home, but reality is always going to win, right? Whatever anything is in this moment, apparently that's the way it's supposed to be. So I trust reality. And then as I look forward, where I've got some influence because I can decide to do this or that, the instant, like I said before, the instant I make a decision, I trust that's the decision that I should have made, and I get on with it. Right? There's no time. You're wasting time if you're sitting around going, oh, maybe I should, oh, maybe I shouldn't, oh, maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't. And get on with it. Life's short, right?
What you just shared in the last 3 or 4 minutes is probably like one of the gems of life, because there's not anxiety in that, right? Because if anxiety is, people try and call it fear. Fear is like real present danger to me, right? A snake is going to bite you. That's
Yeah.
fear. But the things we try to control, the anxiety of, an uncontrollable outcome that we're trying to control. And you're not trying to control that. You're saying, okay, life is going to take me places, And I think part of your experience is I've lost everything. What could be worse than losing everything? I just get it back again, right? So you're not spending your days trying to control this undesirable outcome. You have faith that the decision that you make is going to work out somehow, whether good or bad, it's still going to work out, and we're just going to move forward. That's huge to walk through life. You know, when I think of like successful folks, and if I were to look at the clues, most of the people who can make a decision and then go with it, regardless of the outcome, end up having a pleasurable life and end up having fulfillment and end up being successful because they're not spending all that time playing these reels in their mind of what possible outcomes could be. Not that we don't do that. We all do that to some extent, but just realizing after I've made the decision.
We try and make a good decision. Obviously, we try and make a good decision, but just don't deliberate too long. You know, and life's short. Lots of people have had the experience of losing a loved one, not to old age. You know, so I've had experiences of losing loved ones, and you know, when my dad died, it kind of made sense because he was older than me. He was only 65. Which was still young, but he was older than me. So we kind of got it. And he had a brain tumor and we knew he was dying. So we kind of had some prep time, you know. But 4 months after my dad died, my youngest brother, who was 30, he died on his motorbike, right? Unexpected, instant death on his motorbike. That rocked my world. That hurt. That really hurt. And it just didn't feel right because he was younger than me and he was only 30 years old, and he was just this beautiful, vibrant soul that you know, connected with so many people around the world, and so many people loved him, and he was just this shining star, and then he was gone. One of the things that taught me was that life is short. We're all going to die, and we don't know when. We know we're going to die, but none of us know when we're going to die, right? So am I going to waste hours, days, weeks, months going, oh, should I do that? Or shouldn't I do that? Or should I do that? Or shouldn't I do that? Which, like you said, develops anxiety. And then I'm anxious and I'm going, oh, I don't know if I'm doing the right thing. And I ain't going to waste that time because it could be gone tomorrow. So let's get on with it, right? Let's love ourselves. Let's love each other. Let's make decisions that are going to hopefully create something good for the greater good. And let's just get on with it, you know.
Jim Fuller, thank you for spending this time with me. I mean, I get to be the luckiest person. I get to be selfish for the first part of the show and just ask all the questions that I want to know so my life will get better. But you have given us a class. You've given us school. I want to give you an opportunity now because I was selfish, but I want you to be able to talk about some of the things that you wanted to talk about. I would love to have you back after your charity gets going and you're already there and you're already doing stuff, but now it's turning into, I'd love to kind of walk through that process with you, down the road at some point as it's starting to take off. But today, what would you love to share that we didn't get to talk about that you want to make sure that our folks that are listening here?
Oh, wow. Thank you, man. Hey, look, I'd love to give your listeners a gift. You know, I've got a very easy introduction to mindfulness meditation course. If you go to gemfuller.com and go to the courses, when you get to the checkout page of the mindfulness meditation course, type into the coupon code box podcast, the word podcast, and it'll make it free. You can download it and keep it forever. And hopefully it'll help give you a pathway into mindfulness meditation, because that's been one of the keys to a fulfilled life for me. My agent and my book publisher would be really upset with me if I didn't mention my book. So the book is The Art of Conscious Communication for Thoughtful Men. However, it's for everyone. Women love reading this book, but I wrote it for men. And that's available on Amazon, The Art of Conscious Communication for Thoughtful Men. There's that bit. Follow me on socials. I'm on Insta. I post content that I hope is helpful for people. My website, gemfuller.com. I'm really accessible, man. I got a lot going on, but I still reply. If you reach out to me, you'll get a reply from me. So let's connect.
Oh man, I love it. I went to your website right now. I'm going to make sure I get the podcast book and the mindfulness, and thank you for what you do. Thank you for being willing throughout your life, of all the things and that has happened to really concentrate on helping people be better, because it does make a difference in the world, and it does make a difference especially for the individual who takes advantage of it and then can pass that on to their kids and their kids' kids. And I know we're fighting an uphill battle sometimes, and I feel like I'm competing with a lot of people, but like you said, there's so many of us out there, and people are searching. People are looking for a relationship, because we pulled it out of a lot of, when we see somebody on social media and see, their best life, and we don't really have a relationship with them because they're only sharing the best parts of their life. We are longing for it, and there are places that you can get it. And so go ahead and subscribe, go ahead and, notification, all the YouTube things that, you got to do in order to make sure that you get to watch some of these, because I'm going to continue to have some amazing guests on like Jim was today. We're going to connect back with him as he moves on and continues to do stuff. And again, thank you for being part of, this path today. Do you have, because it's been so many, and so I want more, right? And so there's just one other thing that you could, just share as we close out today. That would be great. Stop. Sorry about that. I don't know why that came on. All right, go ahead and give us one closing thought.
One closing thought. I just want to say to anyone who's listening, you made it. You made it. You made it to this moment. Apparently, you are exactly where you're supposed to be right now, and it's not the end. There's more to come. But just for this moment right now, just pause and give yourself a pat on the back, because you made it.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Sorry for the little interruption. I'll cut that out of there. But thank you so much again for being on. We'll look forward to talking to you guys on the next one. Don't forget your God's greatest gift. He loves you if you allow him to, and we'll talk to you